Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. You know we love digging into all sorts of businesses and markets, but today we're stepping into the world of Indian jewelry retail.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We're diving deep into Kalyan Jewelers India Limited, or as you'll hear us call it, KJIL.
And we're going to be using this really fantastic, in-depth credit rating report from ICRA Limited.
Yeah, it's packed with great stuff, financials analyses, and it even gets into environmental and social factors, which I thought was super interesting.
I know, right? It really paints a complete picture. So we won't be getting lost in the weeds. We'll be going on a treasure hunt.
A treasure hunt, I like that.
What makes KJIL tick? What hurdles are in their way? And where could all this lead them and the whole industry in the future?
It's a really interesting story for sure. There's definitely growth and some really clever maneuvering.
But also a little bit of a reality check in this report.
Yeah, for sure, about how complex the industry is and how fast things are changing.
Okay, so let's start with the good news. KJIL is on a roll. They're growing like crazy.
Oh, they are killing it. 32% year-over-year revenue growth in the first half of 2025. That's massive.
Massive, right?
Yeah.
And they're not just sticking to their usual South Indian market. They're branching out.
Exactly. They're playing their cards, right? One thing that really stands out to me is their focus on studded jewelry.
Interesting.
Yeah, those pieces, they tend to have higher profit margins, which is great for their bottom line.
Yeah.
And even more interesting is their expansion.
Yeah, they're not just growing within India.
Nope, not at all. They're going international, Middle East, and get this, even the United States.
Wait, the U.S.? Seriously?
Yeah, they're going for it.
I did not see that coming.
Yeah.
So they actually opened a store in New Jersey.
They did.
Are we watching the beginning of like a global jewelry empire here?
It's a bold move, for sure. The U.S. market is so different from India. Adapting to what American shoppers want is going to be key.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see what happens. But, their track record so far.
Right. They're not afraid of a challenge.
Not at all. Speaking of adapting, there's this thing called the FFOCO model, and honestly, I'm dying to know more about it.
Franchise-owned company operated. It's pretty genius, if you ask me.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So break it down for us. How does it work?
Okay, so with FOCO, the franchisees are the ones taking on those inventory costs. And that keeps KJIL's working capital super lean and boosts their return on capital employed, or as you'll hear it called, ROCE.
Okay, so it's like a tag team.
Exactly. Franchisees get the support of a big brand, and KJIL gets to expand without needing tons of cash up front.
So they found this way to grow really fast without taking on a ton of risk.
You got it. But like any good partnership, there is give and take.
Meaning?
KJIL shares profits with these franchisees, so maybe their overall margins don't grow as much as if they owned everything themselves.
So it's a trade-off?
Yeah.
High growth potential, but maybe a slightly smaller piece of the pie for them.
You got it.
I'm sensing a theme here. KJIL seems to be all about strategic risks, but calculated ones.
They're sharp, but let's not get too carried away. Because even with clever strategies, this is a tough business.
Yeah, you're right. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. The report doesn't try to hide the challenges.
Nope, not at all.
Competition is fierce, the market is fragmented, and then there's the price of gold, which is about as predictable as...
Yeah, like a roller coaster.
Exactly.
Those are all huge challenges.
Yeah.
There are tons of players in the jewelry market all competing. And yeah, gold prices can be crazy volatile.
And that affects everything.
Everything. Their profitability and how much people are even willing to spend.
It's a high wire act.
It is.
The report mentions hedging against gold price swings.
Right.
But how much control do they really have when things go haywire?
That's the million-dollar question. Hedging helps, it gives them a little safety net.
But it can't protect them from everything.
Exactly. A massive sustained shift in prices could shape even the best hedging strategy.
Totally. And then you've got things like that customs duty reduction on gold back in July 2024.
Oh, yeah.
Which the report says really hit KJL's operating margin. Is that a blip or a sign of more government intervention to come?
It makes you think.
Yeah. Even policies that are supposed to help can backfire. It just shows how vulnerable a business can be to things outside their control.
100%.
Hmm.
Companies like KJIL have to be chameleons, constantly adapting to whatever the market and the government throw their way.
It's a lot. Now, I was impressed that the report goes beyond just the numbers. It gets into environmental and social risks,
Yeah, me too.
even bringing up how climate change could impact demand for jewelry in rural areas.
Right. I hadn't thought of that before.
Me neither. It really makes you think about how interconnected everything is.
Yeah, climate change can hit agricultural output, which then impacts the purchasing power of entire communities.
And that includes some of KJIL's key customers.
Absolutely.
It's a bit of a wake-up call
It is.
that even industries that seem far removed from climate change are still affected by it.
For sure. And then there's the social side of things.
Right.
The report highlighted how KJIL really needs to pay attention to changing tastes.
Like what kind of changing taste are we talking about?
Well, for example, there's a trend towards lighter, more everyday jewelry.
Huh. That's interesting. I've definitely noticed myself leaning toward more delicate pieces that I can wear all the time.
Yeah.
What about you? Have you noticed this trend?
To be honest, analyzing trends is more my thing than following them, but it's a shift the whole industry is noticing.
So the big traditional heavy gold jewelry may not be as in demand with younger generations.
That's what it looks like.
So KJIL has to stay ahead of the curve, right?
They do. They have to appeal to these new tastes.
It's all about adapting, coming up with fresh ideas.
100%. Staying relevant is key in any industry, but especially one as fast-paced as jewelry.
So we've seen the glitz, we've seen the potential pitfalls.
Right.
KJIL's doing a lot right, but they've got some serious challenges too.
They do.
But before we jump into those, let's take a closer look at their financials,
Okay.
especially that intriguing FOCO model.
Let's do it.
All right, so we've talked about KJIL's game plan, but let's get down to brass tacks, their financials. What really stands out to me is how this FOCO model impacts their working capital.
Oh, it's brilliant. Having their franchise partners handle the inventory frees up so much capital for KJL.
So it's not just a theory, it's actually working.
It's working beautifully. Their inventory days have been steadily decreasing thanks to FOCO.
Inventory days. Remind me what that is again?
Sure, it's basically how fast they sell their inventory. So lower inventory days mean less working capital tied up, and that boosts their return on capital employed.
The ROCE we talked about earlier.
Exactly. The report shows a significant improvement in their ROCE, which means they're using their capital way more efficiently.
Okay, that's impressive. But is there a downside to this asset-light approach? Are they giving up anything to be this efficient?
Well, there are always trade-offs. With FOCO, they get those great results with working capital and ROCE, but it also means sharing profits with the franchisees.
Right, there's that profit-sharing element again.
Yep.
It's a balancing act, isn't it?
Yeah.
Trying to be as efficient as possible while still maintaining a healthy profit margin.
Absolutely. It's about finding the right balance. And it's not just about the numbers either. It's also about managing the whole operation.
Right, keeping the brand consistent across all those different franchisees.
Exactly. Making sure the quality is up to par and tailoring their approach to different local markets.
So yeah, FOCO comes with its own set of challenges.
It does.
I guess no business model is perfect.
Nope.
You always have to adapt and adjust to what's happening in the industry. Speaking of adapting, let's talk about their expansion into the U.S. Opening that store in New Jersey was a big move.
It was.
What kind of challenges and opportunities do you think they'll run into in that market?
That's a great question. The U.S. jewelry market is a whole different ballgame.
In what way?
It's super competitive and consumer tastes are all over the place.
So KJIL can't just take their Indian designs and strategies and expect them to work in New Jersey.
Exactly. They really need to understand what makes American shoppers tick.
It's lots of research.
Tons of research. Figuring out what American consumers are looking for, maybe even collaborating with local designers or influencers.
To create pieces that really appeal to American tastes.
Yeah.
It's an exciting but kind of scary move, right?
It is.
But if they can make it work in the U.S., the rewards could be massive.
Absolutely. We could be looking at a major global player in the jewelry industry.
So we'll be watching closely to see how they navigate this new territory.
Yeah.
But with all this opportunity comes risk.
Of course.
What are some things that could trip them up?
Well, first of all, they could misread the market.
Like assuming what works in India will automatically work in the U.S.
Yeah. They need to avoid just imposing their existing designs and strategies without really getting what American consumers want.
So no one-size-fits-all approach.
Definitely not. And then there's the competition. The U.S. jewelry market is packed with big players, small players, everyone.
So how do they stand out?
That's the challenge, right?
Yeah.
They need to find their niche in a crowded market.
Like trying to shine in a sky full of stars?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. They need to find their own sparkle.
Exactly. And then you have all the practical stuff, too.
Oh, yeah, the logistics of operating in a whole new country.
Dealing with regulations, setting up supply chains, building a team.
It's a lot.
It's a huge undertaking. But KJIL has a history of adapting and overcoming challenges, right?
That's true. They've definitely shown they're innovative and resilient.
So the risks are real, but I wouldn't count them out just yet.
I agree. They have a knack for rising to the occasion.
But let's zoom out for a second and look at the bigger picture.
Okay.
KJIL's story is just one part of this larger evolution happening in the entire jewelry industry.
It's a microcosm of the changes we're seeing across the market.
So what are some of those changes? What's driving this evolution?
Well, one of the biggest things is technology.
Like online shopping.
E-commerce is transforming how people buy and sell jewelry.
Yeah, it's so convenient. You can browse so many different styles,
Yeah.
compare prices all from your phone.
It's like having a jewelry store in your pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And with social media,
Oh my gosh, social media.
it's huge for jewelry brands.
It's like a constant stream of new designs and trends.
Exactly. It's a powerful marketing tool, and it definitely influences what people want.
So jewelry companies have to be on top of their game online and offline to keep up.
Absolutely. And then there's this growing awareness of ethical and sustainable practices.
Oh, yeah. People, especially younger generations, really care about where their jewelry comes from.
Exactly. They want to know how it was made, if it was produced responsibly.
It's not just about looking good anymore. It's about feeling good about what you're wearing, too.
Right. So jewelry companies are feeling the pressure to source their materials, ethically ensure fair labor practices, and reduce their environmental impact.
I think it's a good thing.
Me too. Sustainability is becoming the expectation, not the exception.
So KJIL, along with everyone else in the industry, has to embrace these changes and adapt to this new reality.
They do. The jewelry industry is at a crossroads.
It's going to be interesting to see who comes out on top.
The companies that can navigate these shifts are going to be the ones that really shine.
That brings us right back to KJIL.
It does.
They've made some smart moves, but there's still a long road ahead with lots of twists and turns.
Their story is far from over, that's for sure.
So let's shift our focus back to KJIL specifically and wrap up our deep dive into their world. All right, so we've covered a lot of ground. KJIL's incredible growth, their smart business model, and all the challenges they're up against in this ever-changing industry.
We have.
But before we wrap up, I think it's good to zoom out a bit.
I agree. It's easy to get caught up in the details of one company.
But KJIL's story is really a reflection of what's happening in the whole Indian jewelry market.
Right. They're kind of a microcosm of the industry. You see those trends towards more organized retail.
Yeah, and the focus on branding and design.
And, of course, the impact of technology and online shopping.
It's all there. KJIL's riding that wave of change, making the most of it while dealing with the normal ups and downs of such a competitive industry.
And their success so far shows they're doing something right.
Yeah, they are. But like we said, they're not immune to those headwinds.
Nope. Gold prices consumer taste that constant pressure to stay ahead of the game.
It's a tough business. But beyond the numbers and the strategies, something else really stood out to me about KJIL.
I'm intrigued. What was it?
It's how they connect with the emotional and cultural side of jewelry in India.
Yeah.
Jewelry is not just an accessory there, it's part of their tradition, their families, their aspirations.
Right. It's deeply ingrained in their culture.
And KJIL gets that. They've woven that into their brand.
It's smart. They found that balance between appealing to younger generations and still respecting those traditional values.
Yeah, the timeless allure of gold.
It's like they're telling a story.
That resonates on a deeper level.
And taps into those emotions and values.
And that's huge in an industry where feelings play such a big role.
It is.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the takeaway for our listener?
I'd say the key takeaway is that the jewelry industry, just like the beautiful stones it works with, has many sides, and it never stops changing.
Yeah, and KJIL is a perfect example of that.
All those challenges, all those opportunities, and it's all part of navigating this dynamic market.
It's a story of ambition, innovation, and the power of tradition.
Well said.
So to our listeners, when you look at that beautiful piece of jewelry, remember, it's not just an object.
It's more than that.
It's a reflection of history, culture, and all the fascinating forces at play in the world.
The economics, the trends, the human desires.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it.
It is.
And who knows, maybe in a little shop in New Jersey, a new chapter in the story of Indian jewelry is just beginning.
A chapter about global expansion and the legacy of craftsmanship.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Kalyan jewelers.
It was a pleasure exploring with you.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep shining.